We are back with Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. This time, we're going to go through all these cards as well. Mean Streets is the first expansion to technically have 2 legendaries per class because of the Tricast cards, but I'm not going to be doing it yet, doing 3 cards yet. When we get to Journey to Un'Goro, then we do get 2 legendaries per class, like, no matter what. So then I'll start doing 3 because that's when we have, the standard amount of cards per expansion. So that being said, we're going to start with Druid as always. The first card I want to talk about is Pilfered Power. I think this card is actually really interesting and kind of cool. It goes in the idea of playing a ramped Druid, of course, but you have to actually have minions to make it work. I think that the card is just a little bit too expensive. At 2 mana, it's still, quite good. You have to have 2 minions on board for it to be better than Wild Growth, which Druid can't really do that consistently in these big ramp Druid decks. So I don't think that would be too crazy. That being said, maybe you could do maximum of 3, something like that. So you can't just play it with Guff and then play it with something like Flipper Friends for 7 mana to gain 6 mana crystals. That would probably be a little too good. So I think bumping the mana down and capping how much mana you can get is probably the best way to say this card. Obviously, you'd word a little different. I'm not going to really get into that because I'm never going to word a card the right way that Blizzard words it, because they word things very weirdly sometimes. But anyway, I think this would be a fine change for the card. It probably still wouldn't even see play, but it does at least give you the option of using this in a ramp Druid, aggro-ish ramp Druid hybrid is where I would see this card getting played. So, kind of like Dragon Druid, but, Then you have Lunar Visions. I feel like this would be such a cool card if it was how do I put it? I feel like it could easily be 3 mana and then minions drawn cost 1 less. All things considered, it's, still getting you quote unquote 1 mana draw 2, because 5 mana draw 2 and then they cost 2 less would have been 1. This is 3 mana draw 2 and they cost 1 less, so it's still 1. Druid does not have that many minions, so I think that giving a card like this to Druid wouldn't really do much. But this would be a good card for an aggro Druid, because your minions cost 1 or they cost 2. So this is going to be 3 mana draw 2 minions, they cost 0, and then you get to play them on the same turn. Or if you've used Embiggen, it'll reduce them back to their base cost. I think this would be nice for an aggro Druid, giving them draw that they don't really have. And yeah, I don't really think this would affect ramp Druid very much at all. Maybe some kind of mid-range-ish spell damage kind of Druid. Maybe that would be buffed by this card. But I think that these 2 cards, just light mana buffs, reducing the effectiveness a little bit, probably puts them more in line for sure. So Dispatch Kodo is actually a really fun card. I love this card. I love what it does for the game. I think what you could do is I think it could be a 2 mana 2/2. I don't see any reason why it couldn't. 2 mana 2/2 deal 2 damage is not that great. There's a lot of cards that are like that, and they're not that amazing. Of course, this gets better with hand buffs, and that's the whole idea, right? You want to buff this card. You shouldn't be paying 4 mana tax for a base 2 mana effect, and then it should get better from hand buff. So I think a 2 mana 2/2 is very fun. People got upset when I kept making a bunch of 2 mana 2/3s, so I'm not going to make it one of those, but I think 2 mana 2/2 for Dispatch Kodo is in line with a lot of cards. It is a class card, so it can be better than the 2 mana 2/2 pirate that if you have a weapon deals to. And then because Hunter is a class that has access to hand buff, especially hand buff to beasts, I don't really. Would it be that big of a deal if you could run Dispatch Kodo in a hand buff Hunter deck? No, it would be really slow. You would have to get it to really high attack before it actually mattered, and then you have to play Brand, so you have the 3 mana attacks. This would just be a really fun card that would open up a new kind of deck for Hunter, where you can deal damage with Dispatch Kodo, buff it up. If you get it to 8 attack, and then on turns with 7 mana, you can deal 32. But giving Dispatch Kodo 8 attack is not easy. You have to give 2 of them 8 attack as well. Not easy to do, but I think it would be very fun. And then you have Knuckles. I think that you could go 2 ways buffing Knuckles. You can't give it Rush. I think that would be way too good for Knuckles Hunter to give Knuckles Rush. That's kind of what you need to build your deck around. So I was thinking, either you buff Knuckles to like, 5 attack, which would be fine completely, or you buff it to 4 mana. 3 mana obviously would be absurd as hell. But I think I like 5 mana, 5 attack Knuckles personally. This is just a slight bump to Knuckles makes it easier to get the OTK, but it still is inconsistent. I don't think giving Knuckles Rush would be a good thing. I think that Knuckles Hunter is one of those decks that like it gets support enough to be playable and will get enough support eventually to be good. But if you give Knuckles Rush, it will kind of ruin the identity of the deck currently, where you're trying to give Knuckles Rush through outside means. And I don't even know if that would really change the actual power level of the card, because the location Castle Kennels is actually just a good card in the deck anyway, because it gives Knuckles 2 attack and it gives Knuckles Rush. So I think giving it Rush doesn't really do anything actually to the deck. So I think buffing the attack by a tiny bit lets you have more lethal outs, things like that. I just think this is how Knuckles should be changed. I'm gonna say Secret Mage shouldn't have been nerfed. Secret Mage is a very telling case of player sentiment not being correct for meta health or like format health. Secret Mage is a deck that needs to exist in Wild. It keeps a lot of degenerate, combo decks out of the game because it is very strong. It's a tempo deck. It loses to other aggro decks pretty much all the time. It's not amazing into like slow control-ish style combo decks, but it can beat them, especially if they run few minions. And then it's really good at dunking on things like Miracle. It would be very good into like Miracle Rogue, and probably pretty good into Huron Hunter. And I think that Secret Mage does need to exist for the health of the Wild format. I understand that people don't like playing against it. That's fair, but that's not really a good argument for Wild to be a worse format just because people don't like playing against Secret Mage. Just suck it up, play around the secrets, and if your deck loses to Secret Mage, good. You're supposed to lose to Secret Mage if you're playing that deck, right? So that's not really an argument. Oh, I can't play X and Y or X, Z, and Y card because Secret Mage objects it, and I only have like 3 minions. Good. That's supposed to happen. That your deck is supposed to lose to that. That's why we need Secret Mage in the format, to keep a lot of degenerate decks more in line. So I think Cabal Lackey going to 0 mana again is necessary for the health of the format, as well as Mage is struggling a lot, and putting Cabal Lackey back to 0 will help the Mage class a lot. And then another card I want to change is Inkmaster Solia. I think Battlecry, if your deck has no duplicates, draw your highest cost spell, period. If your deck has no duplicates, draw your highest cost spell. I think, and then the next spell you cast this turn costs, or the next spell you cast, let's remove that, costs 0. I think this would be a big buff to the deck. It would obviously be for, what's it called? I can't remember what the card is called. Luna's Pocket Galaxy. It would be for Luna's Pocket Galaxy. It would still be on turn 7 that you could play Lunas, but this would make it so you have your Lunas more consistently. It's not really that. It's not really like Luna's Mage is some super oppressive meta card deck. It hasn't been good since 5 mana Luna, so I don't really see an issue with Inkmaster Solia also drawing it and making it cost 0. Removing this turn is pretty important, I think, because what if, I don't know, I just don't like this turn effects on cards like this. It's kind of stupid. It doesn't really change that much if you're drawing your highest cost spell. I just don't like it. Sometimes you want to play a different card, right? Or something like that of that nature. I just don't like it. I'm just gonna be real. It is completely objective. I just don't like this turn only on discounts, like especially for really expensive cards like Solia. I think it's really fucking stupid, and like you should be able to bank things. Sometimes you don't want to play the spell on that turn, just that. But I think being able to draw Lunas from Solia is a huge thing. Solia is not a good card anyway, so giving it a huge buff like this would be fine. It's still 7 mana 5/5, which it's understated. And then, like, it's so your Lunas isn't just 7 mana do nothing on the turn you play it. You at least get a 5/5 body. That's my whole thought process behind it. And it's kind of a dead card, after Lunas. Like, yeah, you could probably put it on, like, a 3 mana spell, like Ice Block or something like that. But, I think this would be nice. So, Grindstreet Outfitter was, quote-unquote, buffed to be a 2 mana 2/2. What this actually did is it nerfed the shit out of the card, because this card was really, really good before that, and then suddenly it falls off. You might think, oh, why is that? It's because it has 2 attack. I think that it should probably get swapped to a 2 mana 1/3, and then this is a significant buff for the card. You could before draw it off of Crystology, and there was a really good way to buff your hand, have a minion, tutor it because of Crystology, but it going to a 2/2 significantly, like, gutted hand buff Paladin. It gutted the card, and it's not like the card was really good in Standard anyway, so it's almost like, why the hell did they do it, right? This is a thing this is a repeated theme with a lot of cards that get buff for core. Is like, why the hell did you do it? It's actually a nerf in disguise. And Grindstreet Outfitter is a big, big offender of that. So I think all you do is you make it a 2 mana 1/3. It still has the same total stat line, but because it is a 1 attack minion, you can tutor it off of Crystology again, and it will make hand buff Paladin a lot better. Another hand buff Paladin that I actually like a lot is Grindstreet Enforcer. Why the fuck is it like whatever? I think this one is very simple. Just 2 mana, maybe 3/4, maybe 3/3, because it also is giving stats to your hand, so you don't want it to be too strong. I think this would be, significant buff. You drop it on 3, it's going to buff your hand, and then it's already a 3/3 body, so that's fine. This card isn't amazing, don't get me wrong, but that's not the idea, right? I don't want to make every card just like, oh, you're instantly running this in deck. I want it to be, okay, this is more of a nuanced idea. It's better significantly, so you can run it, but maybe it's still not the best, right? Because I don't want to just make cards crazy. Like, if I had made this 2 mana, like 2 mana 2/3, it would be insane, right? So making it like a 3 mana 3/3, it's a little worse, but 2 mana would be way too good for a card like this. So at 3 mana, you can still play it early on in the game. It'll give your hand a buff guaranteed. But if it lives, it's going to keep buffing and over again. But at 4 mana, it was just too slow. So now you can play this. You can curve it into like Samuro maybe and clear the board. And I think this is it is just a better way for the card to be. That's all I think. Mana Geode is actually a card I've been very fond of lately because I've been playing a lot, and I mean a lot, of Overheal Priest and Even Priest, and this card is really good in that deck. So I think you just do a slight buff, maybe to a 2/3 crystal, or if you really want to be spicy, a 3/2 crystal. This card would only be playable in Even Priest, which is already not a good deck, so I don't think that summoning a 3/2 crystal would be that big of a deal. Even Priest is not good by any means, but this would be nice. Yeah, Mana Geode, I think it is in Standard currently, but, like, again, you're not going to play this anyway, so, like, does that really matter? No. Obviously, and it's eventually going to get out of core, so I think that doing something like this would be a big buff to, like, a Overheal Even, kind of Priest, one of those, and it would just be really nice. It helps fight for the board a lot better. It pushes a lot more damage. I just like it a lot. Another card that I think is really good for like an Overheal kind of style deck is Cabal Talon Priest. In the past, you used to play this in, Inner Fire, but it's fallen off significantly. So I was thinking, okay, what if we made it, give a friendly minion +3 health, yeah, but restore and give a friendly minion +3 health. So it works in Overheal decks, yeah, and it buffs the minion at the same time. This might still be too weak, don't get me wrong, and I think that if it's still too weak, you maybe bump it down to a 2 mana 2/3. I know, 2 mana 2/3, and then you do like 2. But I kind of like the idea of it still being 3 mana. I think that might be a little more fair for an effect like this, being tied to a 3 mana. So there is that. This card would be really nice in, Overheal kind of decks. You get to buff the minion at the same time for if you run Bless as an alternative, but it still is healing a minion, so you can get those Overheal effects. So, admittedly, Rogue has a really boring set, and I don't want to touch Jade cards because they were already buffed in Caverns of Time, so I'm going to buff a lot of the Stealth Rogue cards. I think Lotus Assassin can be like 3 mana for 2. There's like, who fucking cares if you're power creeping stuff like from the classic set with like, I forget what it's called. It's the cat. It's 3 mana 4/2 cat with stealth. Not that big of a deal. Whenever this attacks a minion and kills minion, gains stealth. It has low health, so it's not great at attacking minions. I was toying with, okay, what if it was still like 5 mana and then it had immune while attacking, but like that would probably be too good. So I think, just pushing this kind of stealth and gaining stealth again for Rogue. Stealth Rogue is a pretty cool archetype in my opinion. I think maybe you could pump this to like 2 mana. Whoa. What the fuck? My screen just like shut off. Sorry. You maybe bump this to like 2 mana, like 2 mana 4/2, and then it's only +1/+1 over Spy Mistress, I think it's called, which is 1 mana 3/1 of the stealth. But I think because of the extra text, it should probably stay at 3 mana. Don't think this really does much. I'm gonna be real with you. I think Stealth Rogue needs a lot more support to be viable, but yeah, it's a little sad. Stealth Rogue is kind of cool. Then, of course, the other stealth card of the expansion is Shadow Sensei. I think that this is way too little stats, stuff like that. It has a condition. I think this card could straight up be like 2 mana. 2 mana 2/2. You have Ash Tongue Slayer, which is give a stealth minion +2 attack and immune. So maybe, 2 mana 2/1. Something like that. It wouldn't be any more crazy than Ash Tongue Slayer. Oops, not that. Ash Tongue Slayer itself is also a 2 mana 3/2, so you have that. I think this would be more in line with Ash Tongue Slayer, be kind of a side grade, like, oh, which one is better? Having immune is a little bit better than having +1 attack if you're trading, but if you're not trading, you want the +1 health because it will live longer. It is just kind of like which is better? I think that this is definitely a lot more in line for, a Stealth Rogue. I mean, I don't know. I like Stealth Rogue. When it was good in Standard, I really liked it, so I kind of just wanted to come back, to be honest. Lotus Illusionist is kind of an interesting card. It's supposed to be like an evolve-centric card, but not a good one, is a thing. So I think, though, a good way to do this would be after this minion attacks a hero, which is already kind of hard to do, not transform, summon a random 6-cost minion. Would this be too good? Probably not. 6 costs are pretty bad. It has a not great body. 3/5 is understated. And it also has to attack the enemy hero, which isn't guaranteed because there's taunt minions. It can get, destroyed, things like that. And it kind of puts it more in line with something like Nathria Vosh, where it is a 4-drop that will summon something when instead of evolving itself, which I think puts it more in line with that kind of idea. And I mean, like, it's not like Lotus Illusionist was ever a card that really mattered to begin with. You can give it a buff like this, and then you'll have 2 minions instead of 1. Plus, like, 6-drops do suck on average, especially because it's wild. So, yeah. Jinyu Water Speaker is cool enough card. Why does it overload you? Wow. No reason for Jinyu to overload you. It's worse than running spells like Healing Rain, things like that. Healing Rain or Bread Baker, whatever the fuck it's called, from Stormwind is also a better healing card than Jinyu. For some reason, Jinyu is overstatted as well, so I think you just like bump down the health, so it's 4 mana 4/5. And then you might not even care. This card still is probably bad, let's be honest here. But it shouldn't overload you for 1 health added to the card. That makes no sense. Like, a lot of these old Shaman cards have overload tied to them for actually no reason, and it's so dumb. It's just so dumb. Blast Crystal Potion is a card that, like, so terrible. It's worse than Assassinate now. Assassinate is 4 mana. If you contextualize Obliterate as 2 mana, destroy a minion, take 3 damage, Blast Crystal Potion can easily be 2 mana. Destroying a mana crystal is so much worse than taking 3 damage. It's unreal. there's no reason this could not be a 2-mana card in today's game. It's effectively 3 mana because you also lose a crystal, which, I mean, like, I get that Obliterate is a pushed card, don't get me wrong, but why can't we push Blast Crystal Potion? At 4 mana, it's terrible because it's just worse than Assassinate. At 3 mana, it's still probably, like, terrible. At 2 mana, it's a lot better, but you might not even run this because it's not like a control Warlock exists, really, and losing a mana crystal is one of the worst downsides in Hearthstone. I think they have to, if you want, like, lose a mana crystal cards to be playable, it has to be a significant mana discount on the initial cost of the card. So 2 mana probably fits it a lot better. Spellfire Potion is also a really overcosted card. I think it could be like 4 or 5 mana. Definitely 5 mana. That's not a question. I think 4 mana is a bit pushing it, but like, you're dealing 5 to yourself. 4 mana deal 5 to all characters probably is too good because of like Soul Rend. So I think at 5 mana, it's definitely fair. Would you run this in Warlock? I think maybe in a control Warlock, Reno Warlock, I think you might run it at 5 mana because, I mean, that's just a lot, and it also pushes some damage face. It deals damage to your hero, yeah, but like, if you capitalize all, that'd be funny, but I don't know. I think that this card should probably be, 5 mana, 6 mana just makes no sense for the card. Yeah, it was printed way back when, but like, I think this is just a lot better for the card to be in. Let's be honest here. So, I know I don't like buffing Caps of Time already buff cards, but come on, dude. Hobart, why are you 4 mana 2/2? 3 mana. Like, Hobart is already really hard to make work because he has the condition of having a weapon equipped, and then he's already understated, so he's hard to play because he doesn't do anything on the board. Easily could be like 3 mana, would not fucking change Warrior and Hobart in the slightest. If he was 2 mana, he'd be broken as hell, don't get me wrong, but like, 3 mana, 2/2 Hobart, easily something to be done. We haven't had an aggro warrior in a long time, so pushing it would be really nice. I mean, like, it's been since Pirate Warrior, right, with the quest, so at least 2 years. We can have Hobart, man. We can have Hobart. It would be fine. There's just, like, come on. Another card that, can push an aggro warrior, I think, actually, is I Know a Guy. You might be thinking, oh, how could you do that? I think it's discover a taunt minion that costs 3 or less. Give it +2/+1. This would be a pretty niche card, of course. It would be a lot better in like a taunt warrior with, quests or otherwise. And I mean, it's not like I Know a Guy was a good card to begin with in Wild. It was kind of okay in Caverns of Time Twist, but like, putting the 3 or less tag on here makes it so it can be a lot more aggressively used in aggro decks, in a taunt aggro warrior. No world where this even becomes a strong card. Let's be honest, taunt aggro warrior kind of isn't real, but it would be nice if it eventually became real. It would be a good kind of meta counter deck into things like Kingsbane, or if Questline Druid ever comes back, it would be one of those kind of decks where it's like a meta counter, meta pick deck. And I think that would be just fine. That would just be fine for the game. Because decks like that should exist. And I don't know, man. I like Taunt Warrior. I think that I Know a Guy should be buffed. All right. It's time for the buffing of Working Greaser. Everyone that was waiting for this video knew it was going to happen. I think we can make Working Greaser a 4 mana 7/7 with no text, and it would still see no play. I think that would be really fucking funny, and I think we should at least experiment with something like this. Just, Working Greaser is the perfect thing to experiment, right? How many stats does a 4 mana textless minion need to have to be playable? I think at 4 mana 7/7, it still might not be. If it is, shame on me, but I think it's worthwhile testing. I really do. It's a funny meme, haha card that they've been buffing for a while. So I think that it is something that we can try and find out if Working Greaser at 4 mana 7/7 would be playable. It's been enough time. We can have Finja back in the game. Murloc decks have been bad for a long time. I think the last time a Murloc deck was good was Sunken City. Why the fuck is the text like this? Don't ask me. Finja could probably be, 4 mana 3/4 stealth, something like that. so it's easier to kill a minion. You could maybe make the argument 3 mana, but it'd probably be a little too good. Maybe like 3 mana, 2/4. It would be better. But I think that Finja is a card that would really, really, really push Murloc decks. It would not be great for Murlocs with Battle Cries, so it'd be more, niche in how you build your deck around, but I don't think that matters. I think that Finja can be, maybe 2/3. I think Finja should be pushed. It would make Murloc decks so much better. We haven't had Murlocs as a long time. Murlocs are one of the worst tribes in the game, especially like as a tribe that has synergy. Quillboars don't really have synergy, so if you don't include Quillboars, Murlocs are easily a bottom 3 tribe with Elemental and Undead, easily bottom 3. So I don't see any reason why we couldn't buff Murlocs. Let's be real here. So obviously you have to talk about Marinoggenfogger. Like, obviously, I think what we do is all in caps, so it applies everything, right? So, like, I'm going to put it in italics, including untargetable effects. So, untargeted. Untargeted effects. So you would say, like, Steady Shot, the Hunter hero power. It fires at your opponent's face, right? Nope, it could hit anything. This wouldn't do anything at all for the card, because it's still 9 mana, terrible card, but it'd be really fucking funny, right? Like say you do Life Tap, right? And it can deal damage to something else. That would be so funny. Or if you have, like, Arcane Missiles. Arcane Missiles could hit your own minions. That'd be so, so, so funny to me. I don't know why. It would be really funny, but I think that is what we should do. Fuck it. This is going on the thumbnail. Boom, download full-size card. Okay. But yeah. I mean, it's not a good card by any means, but it would be really, really, really funny, and I think that's worth it. I just think it's so funny. I'm sorry. Anyway, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me if you think that I hit on any of these cards that I missed. Were there cards you think I should have changed? Did you think that I made something too strong? Things of that nature, blah, blah, blah. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.